It's the Hogs Die.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Hogs Die. Our guest today is a true Renaissance man. He's covered DC sports for 30 years and currently writes about the Redskins for the Washington Post Express. He's the author of the popular book 100 Things Redskin Fans Should Know and Do Before They Die. He's got an awesome podcast called The Burgundy and Gold Hour with his buddy Matt Cones that you can check out on iTunes, and he's even a licensed tour guide for the DC area. So we're absolutely thrilled to welcome to the show today the Washington Post's Rick Snider. So join me, Sean Conti, Robbie Duncan.
Hey, everybody.
And Alex Zeese.
Sup?
For our interview with Rick coming up right now. I guess the first thing I want to ask you is, as a guy who's covered the team for 30 years, you've seen a lot of administrations in terms of general managers and coaches. Can you tell us how this administration compares to those of the past?
Well, the interesting part of Scott McClellan came out yesterday or Sunday when I was looking at him during the game. Usually general managers have always been up in the owner's box during games. Charlie Casserly did. Vinny Serrata, if you want to call him that, did. Bruce Allen. They've always been by the owner. I don't remember Bobby Beathard. And really, they didn't have a GM before Beathard. You know, it was always coach. So pretty much they've always been in the owner's box during games because the owners want them there. But for McClellan, I'm watching the game. He's under the goalpost. He's on the 10-yard line. You know, he's very much right there watching. I thought that was pretty interesting because it just shows me he's very narrow focused on how he does things and doesn't worry about this other stuff.
You mean he's not in the booth helping with the challenging like Bruce Allen was doing originally?
I mean, yeah, listen, Charlie Casserly and Beathard probably would have been on the field, but the owner wanted them there next to him. So, you know, you work for the owner, you do what he wants. So, Scott has a lot more autonomy. Plus, Bruce is already in the booth with Dan, so if he needs Bruce to handle the famous VIPs or whatever, he can. So, but Scott's got a little bit of leeway there that others don't. But it does illustrate how well Scott has autonomy to do what he wants and is just focused on this. So that's a great thing.
Sure.
Well, he certainly can, kind of hang his hat on this season so far. He's got his rookie class performing really well so far. You got Preston Smith flashing when he gets the chance. Jameson Crowder just took the slot receiver spot from Andre Roberts. Kaishon Jarrett was just on the field every snap on defense, doing really well. I mean, you got to be pretty excited for how they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, he's got more picks working, I think, than Vinny and Bruce did combined. You know,
yeah.
Which would be two.
Ouch.
You know, but yeah, I mean, he's really Matt Jones is the kind of player that Scott picked that Shanahan, Bruce, whatever you want to call him, or Shreve, would never have picked in a million years. Just under the radar kind of guy. I mean, most past regimes have been good at trying to at least know who's in the first and second round. After that, spitballing completely. Whereas you can see McClellan in the third round finds Matt Jones, or in the fourth round finds a Jameson Crowder that are better, real pieces to help out. And the Redskins have survived massive injuries this year along the offensive line, tight end, and cornerbacks because McClellan has stocked more reserves on this team than they ever had. They can't do much more of this, but that shows you his influence too is he made the second 22, hopefully as good as maybe as the first 22 in some ways.
Well, since we're talking about just the front office, I'm kind of curious as to, and since you're, involved with the actual team, you would be the person to go with to ask this question. What is the relationship seem like to you guys between McClellan and Gruden, and I guess Bruce Allen as well being involved there? Is it do these guys just see themselves as, hey, we're all here just to work together, or do you think that they're starting to get a sense that they could actually build something bigger with this team going down the road if they stick together?
Well, I think the first inclination is to try and do it together. But winning and losing decides what the future will bring. The first preference I think McClellan has is he'd like to work with Gruden. Gruden's a pretty easygoing guy to work with. So it's not, there's no egos there like some coaches. He's a good guy with that. So I'm sure Scott would prefer that. But, the win-loss record is going to determine that. Now, I think the win-loss record at the end is going to be okay enough that Jay stays. If it's a 2-3-4 win year, then McClellan's got to do what he's got to do. Bruce is a politician and handles a lot of things and should stay away from his football team. But he's a liaison between McClellan and Snyder. Mm-hmm. So the nice thing for McClellan is he's not necessarily in the direct line to Snyder. I mean, certainly he talks with the owner, but he doesn't have to have the same relationship that maybe others did. And Bruce handles things, in the middle, so that Scott is left alone to go do what he wants to do.
He makes sure we're winning off the field.
Yeah, well, Bruce has a couple skills. They don't relate to the football team, but this team's going to be going for a new stadium in coming years.
Right.
Bruce will be the guy with the politician. Mm-hmm. Bruce is the kind of guy to run interference about the name. He's the guy that's gotten the alumni back into this team because there were so many regime shifts for a while that the alumni pretty much have been discarded and forgotten, and Bruce has brought them back. So, Bruce does some things really important. I just don't want him to run the draft board.
Yeah.
Sure. No, I think we're all happy that he's not. You've mentioned now a couple times Dan Snyder, and I've got to ask, is he just kind of lost in the whirlwind of all these new front office hires, or do you think he's actually backed off a little bit? What do you think his influence still is over the team these days?
Well, I think he definitely is still interested in what goes on, but unlike some of the previous GMs, per se, that just went ahead and did what Snyder wanted, McClellan's not that easily swayed. Although we'll see next year's draft, and we'll see about quarterback. That'll tell me a lot. But I know Dan still has his thoughts on the matter. And, okay, you own the team, and you're allowed to have thoughts on the matter. Jack and Cook did, but they won so much that nobody worried about it. Jack and Cook more or less let his people do their thing, and if you screwed it up, you were going to be in trouble. But, and when they got Doug Williams, for instance, Bobby Besser went to Cook and said, listen, I need $1 million to sign a backup quarterback, which at the time was unheard of. And basically, Cook just said, explain to me why you need this. And he did, and Cook signed the check. Mm-hmm. But he wanted to hear the explanation first. And, Doug, it's a very interesting guy in that he wins the Super Bowl, but really only played about a dozen games for the Redskins and had a losing record in the end. But, Doug's remembered for winning that Super Bowl. So, every owner has a right to ask what's going on. This is his group.
Right,
but
sure.
The smart ones basically say, okay, now I know what you're doing. Go do it. If you screw it up, I'll fire you and bring in the next guy. But Snyder's doing better than he used to, but he's not some owner in exile. That's not happening.
Sure.
Yeah. And I think that's pretty evident, Rick, that he's kind of backed off, especially with the whole Kirk Cousins being the starter now. I think it seems like everybody they pitched it to Dan saying, hey, Robert's the starter right now, but here's why we should have Kirk being the starter. And it looks like he completely was all for it. It looks like he just wants to win.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely just didn't want Robert to be forgotten here. And he basically was saying, before we, don't have him anymore, are you sure? Have you exhausted? And that's true of any boss with a major asset in a company. You want to make sure before you do this, you've exhausted all options. And I think once they said to him, here's where we stand, he pretty much had to say, okay, he really, if he were to say, I don't care what you think, we're going to play Robert, it would have caused some real problems all around. And I think he's smart enough, finally. This was problems before, but finally, especially with McClellan, the football people can run the football team.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's actually a great segue into what we wanted to ask about next. So obviously we're coming off the heels of a very confidence-building win in Philadelphia, and we're at the quarter mark of the season here. What's your big picture impression, just the main bullet points of how this offense has improved over last year?
Well, I think two things. The line is much better, and the diversity of people is much better. I watched Spencer Long play left guard a little bit. I saw him miss a couple, but overall for his first start, it went bad. So you got basically three brand new players on this line, and Trent Williams. And, Rick Snider calls out pretty good projection scheme. So I think that you improved. You're young on this offensive line, but it's going to be a good line, and that's a real building block to the future. And then, against the Eagles, they had 8 players catch passes, 5 players run the ball. That kind of flexibility, along with a line that can both run and pass block, really keeps defenses guessing where things are going. For instance, this team was down to Pierre Garçon playing pitch and catch at the end.
Yeah.
It wasn't hard to figure it out. I kind of wonder when Deshaun ever comes back, how they're going to be able to play him, because Kirk doesn't have the arm to throw down the field with real accuracy to Deshaun, and that's where Kirk gets in trouble trying that pass. You got to have a deep ball, but they're not going to be able to maximize Deshaun. And so next year, I don't know if Deshaun's on this team. It would be the last year of his contract, and they can opt out on him. And this whole thing about him missing already 4 games, that's on Deshaun, and he knows it. So, I don't know if the Redskins will miss him that much.
And he's not getting any younger either. He's going to be 29 soon, right?
Yeah, and receivers by 30 start to run out. Deshaun's speed is still amazing. He's the fastest Redskin I've seen since Darryl Green. But you got to be on the field.
Right,
Yep.
and let's be honest, speed receivers, speed is the first thing to go with them, so that's a concern, isn't it?
Yeah, and he's never been a great blocker, so it's not like he does all the things. Pierre Garçon does a lot of things on that field besides catch a ball. But Deshaun doesn't, pretty much.
Sure.
Well, I guess, what about the defense? Do you think that we've seen what are some big differences you've seen? Obviously, there have been a lot of faces have changed. But what do you think about what the defense has done so far to kind of change people's outlook on them?
Well, they're a pretty decent run-stopping team. I don't know what the stats are, but, they're doing that. They have balance in that. Kerrigan is off to a slow start, but I expected that because of off-season surgery and did not play the preseason. Walking out there day one and, on a 14-sack pace. But I thought he was steady improving in these games, and his 4th game was his best. So now he's going to become that influence you need. But they also have pass rushing on the other side, which they didn't have a lot of times because Arachno was hurt. So they've finally gotten some balance on both sides of the ball. And between the time of possession the Redskins have done and the front 7 playing pretty well overall, the cornerbacks haven't been exposed. Safeties are playing better than I thought they were, but Culliver's already banged up, and it's hard to get healthy after you get hurt.
Yeah.
D Hall's out. Who knows when he'll come back, if he really does. But they're vulnerable. They're very vulnerable on the corners. And the Eagles figured it out and scored twice real quick, and then stopped doing it. I would have kept doing that till you bleed. Julio Jones, I guarantee you, is going after all this.
God, yeah.
So that's the scary part of this team is they are vulnerable. They've done a real good job of protecting that vulnerability, but it's there. Brady's going to find it. Atlanta's going to find it. Those are going to be the tough parts.
Rick, I think one thing that's kind of jumped out to me is, they preached a lot of in the offseason that we're going to be a very aggressive team. But really, we haven't been blitzing that much. It's just been straight 4-man rushes, 3-man rushes, and doing the D-line stunts and stuff. I would think they would need to kind of bump that up some against Atlanta to really give their secondary a chance to cover guys like Julio Jones and a revitalized Leonard Hankerson.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think part of what they were also talking about aggressive team was the type of mentality that these guys are. These dudes want to go after things. I've watched practices are so different this year to me. It really illustrates why they're doing better. Practices, especially even blocking drills one-on-one, they're banging at each other. They were not doing that last year. Last year practice was a lot of wasted time, guys goofing off. It's not like that at all this year. It is business. And that translates over to the field. And I think you're seeing guys who as McClellan would talk about, I want to bring in guys here that want to beat the hell out of you and let you know you've been beaten along the way. And I do see that on both sides of the ball. Very much more physical team, and they're ready to fight you. I mean, I thought Jarrett looked terrific coming up and just hitting people.
Mm-hmm.
And you could see that kind of passion with these players. And as they get rewarded with some success, that's going to grow even more. So I think that's part of it. Now, as far as how much more they'll blitz, well, by and large, things have gone pretty well, so it's hard to second-guess it. But you don't hear people really second-guessing very, very much yet. But, as the season goes, we'll see. I would have never expected that.
No. The defense has definitely done a 180, it feels like, this season versus the Hazlitt years, that's for sure.
Yeah. Especially those first two games, it seemed like.
Yeah.
So, Rick, we wanted to ask, too, we're at the quarter mark of the season. We've talked a little bit about offense now. We've talked a little bit about defense. What, to you, are the biggest questions that you still have about overall, like, team identity and strategy at this point? What are your biggest concerns about the team so far?
I think one of the benefits of being 2-2 and Cousins showing enough is that he's keeping the job for 16 games. There was some rumors that RG3 might still be there.
Yeah.
And then, hey, if they'd reached the break at like 1-6 or 2-5 because that team, then you don't know. But I think they're going to stay 500, near 500 enough that Cousins has the confidence to be able to just stay and keep playing.
Mm-hmm.
And that translates to play calling, where Gruden and his play calling team can come up with a plan that really suits Cousins even more. And with Philly, they really ran a lot more crossing routes. They did more things to his strength. I think because they now know that really Kirk's going to be able to do these things and be there. And so that really changes your offensive strategy more than it was a little too helter-skelter in the past. And they're also getting a feel. They're getting a feel for the whole roster. When you see Chris Thompson come out there and go bam, 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 some of you're looking at it like they got 3 running backs. They can confuse the hell out of people with this kind of stuff. So I think their offense, with its diversity, is really going to keep people on their heels a little bit, especially if they keep this time of possession thing up that they've done, which is practically unheard of what they're doing. And, they're not scoring a lot of points with it. And there's a real concern is the red zone offense. They could have knocked out Philly right away at 14-0.
Yeah.
But instead you get 2 field goals. When you do that, the other team goes, okay, we've survived the worst and 1 score and we're ahead.
Mm-hmm.
And that will break your back many times.
Didn't we kind of see that with the Miami game as well, where they got the ball down the field plenty, got in the red zone, I think, 6 times that game, but just didn't come away with any points?
Yeah, your red zone offense has to at least get touchdowns half the time. Now they don't really have that one tall receiver like Hankerson that they were hoping would be, or Malcolm Kelly, guys like that. They're hard to find, I guess. They haven't had a really good one in a long time. You need, with Kirk still not being the greatest of passers, you need guys that can get quick separation, go to the corners. They're trying to start throwing more of the corners instead of in the middle of the end zone. Right. Whereas Pierre Garçon caught that ball, it was the weirdest thing. Pierre Garçon, his front of his body is still in the field, but the back of his body is in the end zone, and luckily so was the ball. I mean, that's how he got hit and twisted around so much.
Yeah.
The ball was still
that
there.
Was brutal.
But their red zone offense has to do better. They've been lucky that this kicker has really worked out.
Yeah, he has.
Thanks, Scott.
I mean,
exactly.
You look at that and say, wow, that move could have blew up in their faces. You cut the successful field goal kicker in team history because his kickoffs were a little short.
Yeah.
But this guy's kickoffs go into the stand, and he's made all his field goals so far. So I don't know if we've really seen him challenged yet on field goal pressure, but that one, McClellan looks like a genius on that one.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I was pretty angry when they cut Kai Forbath. I was a big Cobra Kai guy. So, yeah.
It's worked out well.
It's worked out well, though. I'm happy to eat the crow.
And Scott, we
trust. I still think their special teams are suspect. Crowder scares me on punt returns and that. He doesn't make great decisions. Sometimes he catches balls poorly when maybe he should have left it alone. There's some work to be done there.
He looks
You
like
know,
Randall L. back when he was our returner.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of a 50-50 thing, and that's a little worrisome. And he's only averaging like 4.7 yards a punt return, which is nothing. You know, where Rashad Ross has looked great on that end. But, you know, they lost so many key guys on their special teams early. When you lose those Niles Pauls and guys like that, that really hurt their special teams.
For sure.
So that's why they had to get a kickoff guy to put it in the stands, because their coverage units aren't good enough.
Yeah. Actually, you just made a great point, and we wanted to ask you about injuries specifically because there's just been so damn many of them already here through the season. So, Niles Paul, we lost.
Adam Haywood.
Yeah, Haywood, we lost. Even guys like Silas Redd, we lost before the season even started. So, we wanted to ask you, what do you think the single biggest blow has been to the team in terms of injuries this year?
It might have been Junior Gillette, but that's hard to guess because they never got to see him play.
Right.
But I think he would have really ramped up the pass rush big time. And Niles Paul definitely is a big loss because he was really poised for a breakout year. He'd taken the job away from Jordan Reed, and now Reed's there, and we see he's got 3 different injuries from this game, including the concussion, which he's had before. I don't see him really, you know, playing at least the next game. The guy Derek Carrier they picked up was a nice pickup for, you know, during the season.
Mm-hmm.
That dude can bang and he can catch the ball. So McClellan did a great job on that one too. But you know, that losing Niles Paul I thought was a devastating loss.
Yeah,
Gruden really seemed upset about it too. If you ask him, I think he'd say Niles Paul too. He said many times during that press conference when he first announced the injury, very devastated. It looked like.
Yeah, I mean, you feel for the guys because you're around them all the time, especially the coach, more so than me. But you know, you're watching these guys give everything they have to get better throughout the entire offseason. Niles is, I think, the 4th or 5th year player who, you know, wasn't natural to this position, and they, you know, invested the time to grow him into this, and it looked like everything was going to pay off finally, and then boom, gone, you know, and it's hard to watch the guys, you know, have, you know, what their dream is taken away from them.
Yeah. Well, here's my question about the team, because I really, as good as they've been so far, I still think this is a building year for us. And I think you'd probably agree that's a fair assessment, right? We're building towards something down the road, not you know, we're not planning on getting to the Super Bowl this year.
Winning in the process is good and all.
Yeah, is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I thought they were a 6-10 team, and I think they're probably a 6-7 win team in the end. Losing that Miami game kind of hurt them. But yeah, this next step, you don't get to go from 4-12 to 12-4 in one year.
Right.
You know, it takes steps.
Yeah.
And you have to learn. I learned this when I started covering sports in the 70s. You don't go from the doghouse to the penthouse right away. You have to learn to win.
Right.
Yesterday was a great example of learning to win games that they would not have beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
You know, players were really objectionable yesterday in the locker room and talking about, you know, we're not the old teams. Literally, we're not the same guys.
Right.
And when people go, oh, same old Redskins, they're not talking about us. Now, I would tell them, I understand that, but there's something in the DNA on these jerseys that just doesn't. Because I've fought over and over and over with different guys.
Right.
You know, and they're kind of like off a win. They got a little bit of hubris to them to say, hey, it ain't on us, we're new guys. And I think it's 23 new players on the roster this year. I'm going to have to count them. But, sure, you know, they're not, even most of the guys, I think Baker's now the senior man with like 4 or 5 years in. You know, that's typical of a lot of teams to a degree, but this one it's very much a newer team because you keep changing coaches.
Sure.
So it's been interesting that they're all like, you know, don't blame the pass on us. Well, you know, then win games, nobody will.
Yeah. Well, here's my kind of follow-up thought on that. Since we are looking at this is talking about the long-term future, who are going to be the guys you see? And since you talk to these guys, who are the guys in the locker room that you can just tell these will be the leaders of this team if it turns around? These will be the ones. It might be guys who are just rookies and they're probably not comfortable with it yet. But I'm just kind of curious who those guys that we should expect to see the captain patch on, in 3-4 years.
That's a good question. I think, Trent's always going to be the offensive line guy as long as he's here.
Sure.
And he probably has at least another 5 years. But, Sheriff might be, the linemen are always good leaders anyway. They're kind of the core of your team. And defensively, too.
Well, they're the
Snyder,
smartest guys on the team. That's what I've been told.
Yeah. Well, and I would say that might be true. Or at least they're the most cooperative guys, so we make them the smartest guys. I don't know. How that works. Their offensive linemen are usually pretty good to talk to, but not that the other guys aren't. It's a very weird dynamic how it works.
No, I know what you're saying, Rick. I played O-line in college.
Yeah, I mean, it's, the guys new. It's hard to say because, like I would say, well, look at, Chris Thompson or Matt Jones, but right now Alfred's the leader of that group, and I don't know how long he's here for, that kind of thing. That's really a hard question to answer at this point. Mm-hmm. Maybe Jared. If Jared plays or Breland play like they've been, they will grow as confident veterans. I could see them, being important to this team's leadership. Kerrigan is not a leader kind of guy. He's too quiet. That's just who he is. So you got to hope that maybe Trent Murphy or Preston Smith are. Preston might be one. But, they've done a good job of young players are quiet, and old players lead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great point. Well, awesome. I mean, Rick, thank you so much for being on the show. Everybody can check Rick out on Twitter at Snide_remarks, which, by the way, is an awesome Twitter handle, Rick. We love that.
Yeah.
Thanks. I did it just to be a wise guy, and because my boss one day said about 5 years ago, he said, this Twitter thing's going to be important. You should do it. And I'm like, I don't get paid to do it. I get a lot of abuse from people.
Sure.
I don't know why I bother, except you want to link your stories and people come read them. But otherwise, I get people to write back, F you and all this stuff. And
of course.
Who wants to voluntarily take on that abuse? So,
Redskins Twitter is a fun place.
Yeah, it's a bunch of cowards that are out there and sad people. I hate to say it, but I liked it better when people would just write me a letter and call me an idiot, and I would just throw it in the trash and never read it. Here's something my bosses probably wouldn't want me to say, but they all are always talking about head bosses, are always talking about engaging with your readership. Well, and you should respond to all the comments under your story. I don't look at them at all. Zero. Because I say, if you knew you were going to walk down the side of the street and everybody was going to flirt with you, you wouldn't walk down that side of the street.
Right.
So I do not read comments at all. So I don't know if you love me or hate me. But now, if you say something to me on Twitter, I have no problem blocking people that are rude. You want to make a point, that's fine. But a lot of people have no boundaries. And when you call them on it, they back away, which means they're a coward. So,
of course.
Other than that, haters are going to hate.
Yeah. I don't participate in that much on Twitter. I find myself, I think I get too fanboyish with some of you Redskins beat reporters and some of the radio guys. Like I got to stop tweeting Danny Rouillet. That's my big problem.
Danny. Yeah, I don't really know Danny very well personally, but he's a comedian, right?
Right. Yeah. And that's what I'm always tweeting him about. Is he's always writing good little one-liners, and I just keep going. Great stuff. Keep it going. Like he cares what I think.
Yeah, I've known Grant since he was a little kid covering the team.
Right.
But I've never met Danny. Yeah. I've met Danny's father of all things, but I've never met Danny.
Well. So was Grant really like a 5-year-old just covering the team at one point on the sideline?
Well, he was 10. But
okay.
I think he was 10. And the great thing about Grant is, even at 10, he went and did his own interview. he did not latch on like most kids would have done, or a lot of younger reporters, listening to you and just stealing your interviews off of players. He went and did his own. And, I knew him. I've known him for so long now. Gosh, I've known Grant for 17 years. I kind of wondered when he and I had a long talk about this, about when he was in his college years, could he make it like the child actors? Could he make it on his own? Because, nobody's going to be rough on the kid in the locker room. But once you get to adult age, you're now competing against them. And, players don't talk to you just because you're a cute kid. But he managed to bridge the gap. And I said, you're either going to be a national guy by 30 or burned out in that business. And I think
you could be both. You could be national and burned out.
I guess you could be like Mad Dog or whatever them guys. But Grant's headed to bigger and better things. There's no doubt about that. So he was a little kid. I've seen this kind of thing once in a while, but Grant's the only one that had any legs to it. And very smart, knows what he's talking about. I mean, here's a guy who's 27 with 17 years experience.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's going national at some point. So he'll never say, well, I've covered Washington sports for 38 years like I have. My goal is 50. Hopefully I'm still alive in 12 years, and I can claim I did 50 years like Shirley Provich did regularly, and Shirley did part-time at over 25.
Well, if you make that, do you get a press box at the new Redskin Stadium named after you then?
That's what I'm claiming. I like how you're thinking, because I said that. If I've covered sports for 50 years in this town and adored these teams, that new press box ought to be mine.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I'd be okay with that.
I'd be okay with that. At least they remember me when I'm gone. But first I got to make another 12 years. I was somebody who had a heart attack at Redskin Park and came close to leaving that day. So I take every day for what it is and enjoy it. Those trainers you see that run out on the field saved my life. So I had the heart attack that kills 19 of 20 men.
Wow.
So
I didn't know that.
Thanks to Bubba Tyre and the staff, they knew exactly what was happening to me. And so if you've had chest pains and walked around for a couple of weeks with them, don't think it's nothing. Go see a doctor instead of being
good
an
advice
idiot like I was.
Yeah.
Good sound advice.
Well, I got a quick question before you wrap up. Since we have you and we got the Falcons game coming up, what's your toppings prediction for the game? I know you like to talk pizza.
Good question.
I think Falcons win this one. They're just on a roll, and it's down there. And I think Julio Jones is just not going to have an answer for him. So I think they probably win. I do talk pizza toppings because I don't know why. I came up with the phrase Crust Monday, and people just won't leave me alone with this anymore. I really wanted – this is my last year of doing it. I am not going to do this for the rest of my life. But
you got to milk it, man.
I've milked it already for a few years too long. But every time I want to quit, people keep going. I have the Crust Monday Twitter handle, but I've never used it. I just don't want anybody else to use it. And then people will think it was me. I think they'll probably get I think I could see a higher shootout score in Atlanta. Something like a 30 to 24 kind of score. So I think the Redskins could get 3 toppings. I just don't think they'll double it for a win.
Okay,
sure.
No, I'll take 3 toppings.
Yeah,
but I've been wrong
my
before.
pizza will be good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Rick, thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it, and we definitely hope to have you back. And in fact, if you get that press box one day, maybe we'll do a little Hogstye episode from live from Redskins Park, right?
By then, they'll actually recognize we exist.
Yeah.
Totally.
Did they let you in?
Yeah, not yet. We're working on it.
Yeah. No. We wrote in for press passes to training camp, and they just kind of wrote back, "Ha ha." So
it was a firm no. We'll put it that way.
It's a different universe at times. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not the guy who decides any of that.
Yeah. Well, we realized it was a long shot. It was our first time.
It's all right. I was there from the sidelines behind the fence, watching everything.
We do what we can here on the Hogstye. We do what we can.
Was I blocking the view and you were yelling at me?
No. That Trevor Maddich actually was blocking the view. He's a big dude.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I know people always want us to get down, but it's actually dangerous to do that.
Yeah.
So if I'm standing in front of you, sorry, but with my knees, I'd be run over and everybody would get hurt.
You should get those. You should get those fold-out seats that Mike Jones and John Keim have. I saw them using those.
Yeah, I saw that, but it's dangerous on the side. Believe me, it doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. And if players can't stop in time, and people can get hurt if you're not mobile, you can get hurt there. And it's a shame that we're in front of fans during camp because we don't like it either anymore. People curse in the house all the time, but we got a job to do too, and we try to move around so that we're not blocking people forever.
Yeah, you got a job. I don't think fans shouldn't be complaining. You guys do. You're doing the Lord's work in a way.
Yeah, but they're cursing at us. Trust me, it's the women that are the worst.
Yeah, I've heard it. I can vouch for that.
Redskins female fans are a volatile bunch, huh?
I used to cover college football and basketball in Maryland. I went back for a couple of years back in 10 years ago while I was recovering from my heart problems. And I was amazed at the vulgarity of the crowd, and in particular from the women. I mean, I had 2 daughters at Maryland. I said, if I turn around and see it's you, I'm going to kill you. Just remember that. And, it was just startling how much the women cursed. I mean, not just cursed, but said amazing things. And they weren't alone. It was like that in many places. But I couldn't believe that there was women doing it.
Doesn't surprise me. All right, well, awesome. Rick, thank you so much. Again, you can get with him on Twitter at Snide_remarks, and make sure you're checking out the Washington Post Express for all his written stuff. It's awesome. And Rick, one more time, thank you so much for coming on the Hog Style. We'll definitely hope to see you again.
You were really great, and all the encore responses were amazing. So thanks so much, Rick.
Thanks, Rick.
Okay, guys. Thanks a lot for having me.
Have a good one.
Take care.
Bye.
All right, awesome. So that was our interview with Rick. I thought that was pretty awesome, wouldn't you say, guys? Ladies and gentlemen at home, make sure you're still checking in with us online at thehogsty.com. We've got some really cool interviews coming up that you should definitely stay tuned for. I don't want to give anything away, but we've got including a potentially really big one. So make sure you're still following us online and on Twitter at thehogsty, and we will see you next time.